A very good evening to one and all. On the behalf of IDA Mumbai chapter, I invite all of you here. Today is International World Food Day. It is celebrated every year on 16th of October to commemorate the date of founding of the United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization, which we generally term FAO, in 1945. On this World Food Day, we at IDA Mumbai chapter are celebrating one of our traditional foods, the millets. In our race to be modernized, we have forgotten millets, which are, we all know, a lot of us know that they are nutrition powerhouses. And in terms of environmental sustainability also, they have very low carbon and water footprint, a factor which is becoming increasingly more important in this day and age of electric vehicles and the coal shortage that we've been reading about in newspapers. We as dietetic community need to promote the use of millets as they are a strong weapon in our armamentarium to fight the onslaught of all the NCDs, be it obesity, diabetes, heart disease, dyslipidemia, or even PCOD. And in fact, amongst public also, there's a lot of enthusiasm when it comes to millets, as in fact, it is evidenced by the excellent response that we've got from the millet recipe competition that we had held. However, as I have seen in practice, and many of you will agree with me, very often patients or clients are not aware of the different types of millets which are actually available in the market and their different properties, be it nutritional properties or even culinary properties. How can they be cooked, how they can be converted into extremely delicious recipes. And there's a lot of resistance to use them as they are not sure how to use them and turn them into delicious dishes. To address these issues and get a deeper insight in this subject, we have an eminent panel with us today. Shobha Menon, who has been working very closely with farmers in Andhra Pradesh and has brought a lot of visibility to Indian millets nationally and internationally. A very warm welcome to Shobha. Asha Khatau, a gourmet chef who runs extremely popular cooking classes and is an award-winning chef, has developed a lot of amazing millet recipes. And of course, our very own dear friend Nazneen Hussain, who will throw light on the nutrition aspects of different millets. At the end of the program, we will be declaring the prizes for the millet competition and also sharing the prize-winning recipe videos with all of you. We will also answer all your questions at the end of the discussion, and I request all the participants to post their questions in the chat box as and when the questions arise. With this, I request Zamrud Patel, the convener of IDA Mumbai chapter, to give a little welcome address. Welcome, Zamrud.
Thank you, Niti. And it's indeed, I welcome all of you on behalf of Indian Dietetic Association Mumbai chapter here today. Friends, we all know the
Zamrud, are you there? Zamrud, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Are you on mute?
No.
Can hear Zamrud.
You can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay,
About
fine.
others? Nazneen, can you hear Zamrud?
Can you hear me now?
Zamrud, we can't hear you.
Niti,
Yes,
we all
you
can.
Give us 2 minutes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you, Zamrud. Go ahead.
Okay. So I welcome all of you on behalf of the Indian Dietetic Association Mumbai chapter. Friends, indeed, this is one of the topics which really needs a lot of attention of nutritionists, because this is really going to help us all in our practice. And Niti has really got a very good panel. And in fact, we were just going through some of the recipes that she mentioned, which they will be discussing later, which people have participated. Beautiful recipes. In fact, it will be very useful in our practice. And I thank all the panelists for accepting our invite and being over here today. So over to you, Niti. Hope that this really adds value to our clinical practices. Thank you all.
Right. Thank you, Zamrud. And we would start our panel discussion now. I would like to introduce all the panelists. First, we would start with Shobha Menon. Right. A very warm welcome, Shobha, and thank you for joining us. Shobha is joining us from London. She is the director of Diabetic Food International, and she has a master's in biochemistry from GS Medical College, Mumbai. For many years, for almost a decade, she worked with multinational companies in Dubai, after which she and her husband decided to utilize their energies in bringing about a transformation in the society in the area of nutrition and health. And they in fact decided that the need of the hour was to revive millet cultivation, production and consumption, and their dream, and I guess the company was born. Today, their company is recognized as one of the leading millet product producers in Andhra Pradesh, and they export these millet products to UAE and Singapore, and are currently working with UK and USA for export. It has been, I think, a very inspiring story as far as Shobha is concerned, leaving the corporate job and exploring the millets, which is going to do good to the public and to the farmers. So it's a win-win situation for everybody. So we very warm welcome Shobha to the panel. Moving on, the next panelist that we have is Asha Khatau. Asha is a very dear friend and a gourmet chef, and she runs one of the most popular cooking classes in Mumbai under the name of Epicure, which features all different cuisines from all over the world. In fact, her first book, Vegetarian Cuisines of the World, had won the Best Book Award in Paris in 2002. She also, of course, consults many eminent caterers and restaurants with her expertise, and of course does voluntary work at Sadhana School and Om Creation. A very, very warm welcome to Asha. She'll be sharing a lot of secrets and hacks as to how to use millets in the most delicious way. And the third panelist that we have is our very dear and a very good friend, Nazneen Hussain, who is the founder director of Freedom Wellness Management. Is of course on the NEC, National Executive Committee of IDA, is a nutritional advisor to INS Hamla, also head dietitian at the Yoga Institute and chief nutritionist at Steadfast Football Academy, along with many other interests and affiliations. So again, a very, very warm welcome to Nazneen. So if I open up the discussion, I would like to start with Shobha. Shobha, what are the factors that you would attribute to the revival of millets? You know, there has been a lot of, now people are aware there is some amount of patchy, but some amount of knowledge and awareness there. How do you think it all started?
Yeah, thank you so much for the IDA Mumbai chapter for inviting me. And I cannot tell you how sincerely I appreciate the wonderful work that dietitians and nutritionists are doing today, because the entire health scenario has changed from what it was a couple of decades back. And we all know now more than more than before that good health does not come from medicines and does not come from hospitals, but good health comes from good eating good nutritious food and having a healthy mind. And the food that we eat go a long way in having a healthy mind as well. So, in fact, doctors treat patients, after we are already sick and we are at the mercy of drugs. Whereas nutritionists and dietitians, what they do is for every one person who becomes a patient, people are saving maybe hundreds of thousands from becoming one. So I have a lot of appreciation for the wonderful work that you do. And I would sincerely wish and I pray that more strength is added on to you and to the work that you do. So that is, with that, I'll go to the question that you're giving me today. And it is a little long answer, if you'd allow me the time, because, to first understand the revival of millets, we'll have to first go to the past a little bit to understand that this in our country we had close to 108 grains. We had a lot of grains. India was a country which had so many kinds of cereals and so many kinds of grains growing because the country was so fertile. It had so many rivers and such wonderful soil. But over a period of time, what happened was we started losing all these grains because of lack of cultivation of these grains. And then came the Green Revolution in 1960 or so, when people started, getting enamored by the huge focus that was there in eating rice and wheat. Green Revolution came and there was so much of governmental focus and subsidies and you can name it, and it was all given to the farmers to grow rice and wheat. And what happened was the farmers who were growing millets, they were unable to grow millets anymore because they were not getting the value for the millets that they were growing. And the land, was not being utilized. And what happened was that rice and wheat started growing because of the hybridization of the grains. The grains were being, modified, and so much of research was being done on how to grow more wheat and more rice. So what happened was rice and wheat kind of flooded the markets, and they flooded our homes and flooded our kitchens. And as a result, what happened was we stopped eating millets, or we stopped eating all the other grains that we used to have in our kitchens. And over a period of time, what happened was our palates changed. That is, if you go 40 years back, you'll see that we grew up eating rice and wheat, where our parents would have grown up eating different kinds of millets and different kinds of grains. We grew up eating rice and wheat because our palates had changed. We wouldn't like to eat the millets. We would like, because from the time the child is born or starts eating some grains, child eats rice. So easy to eat, tasty to eat. And, chapatis are gluten filled, so they are easy to make. So our palates changed, and that was where the downslide actually started, because we started enjoying these high carbohydrate diets. And the more we started enjoying them, the more they were produced, and it became a cycle. And then we started, slipping into ill health. Now, if you see, about two or three generations have gone by, and today what we see is a result of that kind of faulty eating, that we have been doing in the last 20, 30 years, or maybe 40 years. So today, what has happened was we are filled with all kinds of lifestyle diseases. We have got diabetes, as you mentioned. We have got heart disease. We have got obesity. We have got PCOD. We have got hormonal imbalance. We have got glucose imbalance. We have got microbial imbalance. All kinds of imbalances are there in our body. And then we have started now wondering, what is the way out? And then we start looking, which are the whole grains, what can a person with diabetes eat? Anything that he eats, his sugar just keeps rising. And people are getting heart disease. And then what do? And then you start looking at alternatives, because you have to eat something, right? Every day. And because of eating rice and wheat, our hunger is also so high. You eat for a little while, and before you know, you're hungry again, and you have to eat again. So the whole search for whole grain started, and that is when we go back to, nature. When we are really hit against the wall, what do? We go back to our, traditions, and we go back to our olden methods. And then we found that when we do research, everybody found that millets was actually a miracle grain. It was actually given to us and we had lost it. So then came the realization, millets have to come back to our plates, somehow or the other. We have to bring millets back. And
Right,
then-
Shobha. So we kind of reinvented, the millets. We were always having millets, our forefathers, but somewhere we kind of lost the train, and the other grains kind of took over thanks to government subsidies and other issues. So Nazneen, nutritionally, how would you categorize millets? Where do they stand in terms of carbohydrates, protein? What would you say?
Thank you, Neeti, for that question, and thank you, IDA Mumbai chapter, for inviting me here. And Shobha has really opened the floor very well. I just like to say that today a lot of, while Shobha just gave a nice background, that there is a lot of happenings with the millet. Even us as IDA were a part of the entire release of the white paper, which was a huge activity with the Indian Institute of Millet Research, and I've also been one of the co-authors for the entire paper. So there is tremendous work going on, and so I think there was no better topic than this for the World Food Day. So I think Neeti and Zamrud and the entire team of IDA, it's a very topic very well chosen. And really, like Shobha actually spoke, that we are actually looking at forgotten foods for the future. Yeah, and that's how I would like to term millets as. And when we're looking at that, it is a powerhouse of energy, because nutritionally, you look at, forever on our dietary prescriptions, we are writing whole grain, we are a carb eating population. People are going to eat carbohydrates, but if they eat carbohydrates which also give you proteins, and millets actually fit that bill, right? So they are whole grains. They are definitely 10 to 12% higher in proteins than the rest of them. Some of them almost go up to 30%. So that is the very important thing. And plus, with the colors of the millet, especially the bajra and the ragi, there are so many polyphenols. Iron content is very high. The magnesium content is very high. Especially, we like to give nuts and seeds, but those are expensive categories. So when you look at millets, it is a powerhouse of energy, which comes at a very, very, pocket-friendly cost. So it is a budget everyday food where one can include it. So I think in that term, it is very high. Also, calcium is a huge problem in our country. And you look at something like ragi, and it has a great calcium content, of almost 364 mg per over 100 grams. So very, very high calcium content. Also, bajra, one of the highest iron content. So I think these are fabulous foods, and millets definitely need to have a comeback.
Yes, thanks, Nazneen. Again, as you said, it's a forgotten food which we need to kind of really remember and promote. In terms of, I think the carbs and protein, it actually comes somewhere between our wheat and rice and the dals and pulses. So it is higher in protein than the other cereals and lower in carbs, but the protein content is obviously not as high as pulses. So it can definitely replace our daily bread, the grains that we use for daily bread. If we use this, that would be a great idea. So for that, Asha, do you find a lot of people looking out for millet recipes? Is there a demand? People say that have a class on millets or a healthy eating class which uses millets.
Obviously, firstly, thank you, Neeti, for inviting me, and thank you, IDA Mumbai chapter, for having me over here. It's a great opportunity, and I was really, really overjoyed when you told me that you're going to share this, and I love to share whatever little bit I know about food. And you hit the right question, and I have been getting a lot of inquiries and lot of suggestions, I would say more so, that what are different millets and how do we use it. And as a result of which, over the time, I've been doing it, this millet, like you say, your chapter, the millet chapter, I've been doing it like since last 1.5 to 2 years, because we have been finding out that how these millets are available. For me, it is like, instant answer has to be that from where do we get it? So now that it is available freely, I can, name a bunch of places where it is available from. So it's all very convenient to them. So definitely, after prescribed by lots of dietitians, as Nazneen also said, that you all are, to your clients and to all the patients that you're recommending this, obviously the next step comes, how do we cook it and what it is. So please give us the recipe. So there's a lot of question and a market for this kind of thing to deal with. Yes.
Right. Yeah, thanks, Asha. Another next question to Shobha. In a scenario where, India has slipped back in the hunger index, which we have just read in the last few days, can millets be useful? And would that help the bridge the gap? As Nazneen said, it's a very pocket-friendly grain. And perhaps it could be one of the easy and a very good answer to this problem. Your views on that, Shobha?
Yeah, this global hunger index, as we see it and what is being spoken about, the three main factors that contribute towards the global hunger index is, one is child mortality below 5 years. The second is child malnutrition, means undernutrition, and other is inadequate food supply. So all these three are undoubtedly interconnected, because the first thing, if you want to improve our hunger index, or our global hunger index, the first thing that we need to do is to ensure that the pregnant mother, the mother who's carrying the baby, she gets the right nutrition. So it is, unless the mother who's carrying the baby doesn't get the right amount of carbohydrates, the nutrients and the proteins, how is she going to give birth to a healthy child who's going to live beyond the 5 years, right? So that child, mother, we are not talking about the people who are well-to-do and are able to, feed the mothers well enough. But when you go to rural areas where the hunger index is which is the cause for the drop in the hunger index, there, if the lady is able to get maybe 2 times a day also a good porridge of millet, her carbohydrate need is taken care of. For minerals, everything that she needs for a good healthy meal, she can get from the porridge of millet that she takes twice a day. So to be able to do that, we have to ensure that the farmers can grow the millets in a healthy manner, right? So for her nutrition is taken care of, she will give birth to a healthy child. But once a healthy child is born, she should be able to take care of that healthy child. So we have to ensure that in the rural areas, the people are economically well taken care of. And for that, we have to ensure that the farmers, because a lot of the rural areas today in India are in the arid and semi-arid areas. In fact, that is how we started going into millets, because all these semi-arid areas are places where there is no water irrigation. Then if you go interiors, you'll find acres and acres, hectares and hectares rather of land, which is lying barren, and the people in that entire area are so, poverty stricken. And what do? Because they are the only thing they can grow in those lands are millets. And they are not growing millets because they are not getting value for the millets that they grow. So unless the entire society moves towards a millet, eating population, what happens is that those farmers will not get, will not be able to grow on those lands because there's no water. And, the climate change and all that is coming right behind us. And because of the use of pesticides and everything for the production of rice and wheat, the entire soil is gone. So the farmer has to be able to take care of that child. And for that, he should be able to grow millets. And for him to grow millets and get the price of millets, we have to eat millets. It's all a cycle. So if we want to improve the hunger index, we have to ensure that the farmer who's growing millets gets the value for those millets. Because along with millet, he can grow, legumes, he can grow so many things. Because it's not a water intensive crop. in fact, a lot of these are rain fed. In fact, all of millets are rain fed. So basically, they get the water from the atmosphere. They don't need a high water supply. So just imagine, so those lands, if he grows millets, he'll have a lush green, crop, and he'll be able to take care of his child. And child mortality will come down, child malnutrition will come down, and his, that supply, the third point was food supply. And his food supply also will be taken care of because he'll be able to take care, he'll be able to feed the family, he'll be able to feed society. So even in fact, not only the rural areas, even the urban areas are going to get hit if the land is left barren, because we are also going to reach a stage where the world is going to go into a hunger epidemic. The next epidemic, very sure that they are saying in maybe a number of decades is going to be a hunger epidemic, because the soil is going to be eroded, there is going to be climate change, and the only thing that can save, in fact, is organic farming and millet cultivation. These are the two things that are going to save the world tomorrow. So we have
yes,
to
Shobha,
ensure.
as you said, basically it's a drought resistant crop. It needs minimum fertilizers and pesticides. It's a very sturdy crop. Millets are a very sturdy crop. So, and needs very little input. So even the soil doesn't have to be like most fertile. It can be grown even in kind of dry, arid regions. So therefore, the carbon footprint is very low. It's extremely environmental friendly. And it's just that, as Shobha said, if people start having millets, if we are able to increase the awareness, even as dietitians, then we are also doing, besides dietetic service, we are also doing service for some of the farming population of the country. Coming to the next question, Asha, are millets easy to cook? So this is some of the most common questions.
I'll just add on to, Shobha gave some beautiful, things on the environment. And, that is why today the government of India actually have named it they've titled it Smart Foods, Smart Food Nutri Cereals, especially because of all these reasons, where the crop rotation is very high and there is a zero carbon footprint, and the crop rotation, they can, once the millet is grown, something else also can be grown, like the pulses. So you actually maximize on the things. So those are very valid points, and that is why the ICRISAT and the Institute of Millet Research actually have named it Smart Foods. Like we have the smartphone, so we have the smart millets, because one thing does a lot of things. So yeah.
No, you're absolutely right, Nazneen. Besides the nutrition portion, there is also another big component involved when we talk about millets. So Asha, coming back, how easy are millets to cook? And what are the basic steps that we should be aware of? Do they need more? Do they need to be pressure cooked? Do they need to be soaked overnight? So if you can share some hacks, because this is where all the resistance comes in. A lot of patients, they say that they don't know how to cook millets.
Okay, so it is, of course, I have tried, tested, and use all different types of millets as soon as I knew about them, mainly from you. You had started me on, okay, have you used them? I'm sending you some samples, try it. And I think that was wonderful way to get me into the millet circle. So they are wonderful, wonderful types of grains, or there are, as everyone knows, there are various types of millets. If you just Google them, you will find all different names. There are some English names converted also into Indian language, so people will understand more. So by and large, all the millets, they require some amount of soaking. The minimum soaking period would be 4 to 8 hours. So what happens is when you soak that millet, it is the water gets to right inside of the grain. And as a result, when you are cooking them in whichever form, I will go through with you a little bit in what forms you can cook them. And when the nutrients that millet has are absorbed much more easily when they are soaked and then used in whichever way. So 4 to 8 hours is minimum, but I would say I soak them overnight. And another thing is also a way to do it is also some millets. If you depends on what you want to do with them, you can also in a very small amount of oil, which is nutrition wise, whichever oil the active, which has got rice bran, olive, whatever, you just roast them very lightly, either with ghee or oil, whatever your nutritionist recommend, and then you use them, you get that nutty flavor out of the grain. So that makes all the millet dishes very, very delicious.
Right.
So,
Great. So those are kind of very important tips and easy to do tips, Asha.
yeah.
And Neeti, even nutritionally, as Asha ji said, I think that those were great points, because when you're soaking it, because of the high fiber content, it also has phytic acid, which actually interferes with the absorption. So like she said, if you're soaking it overnight and you're discarding the water, you're also eliminating a lot of phytic acid, which means, and then some of them also could be, sprouted.
Noted.
So you're actually increasing the nutrient content tremendously and also reducing the phytic acid, which actually is an anti-nutritional factor.
Right. So the soaking, again, which we do with a lot of other things also, pulses, a very good idea. And sprouting. These are two of the most important steps where we want to reduce the anti-nutritional factors, basically especially the phytic acid, the phytates, and also make them kind of more digestible. When you sprout them, we all know that the micronutrient content also increases. So yes, going back to Shobha again, which states in India are the most millet producing regions?
Yeah, now in fact, a number of states have started growing millets, and the only thing that the which millets grow is in which area means that there is a slight of a difference in that. I mean, of course, a lot of the western part of India, that is Maharashtra, Gujarat, Rajasthan, they have all been growing, what you call the major millets, the bajra, the jowar, bajra, and in Karnataka, you would find a lot of ragi millet, the nachni that you call. You find a lot of that growing on this side of India. Whereas the other millets, like the minor millets, which are smaller in size, but actually very high in nutrition. And in fact, they have they have a lot of medicinal qualities as well. And in fact, we need to move away from major millets to minor millets if you want to get the real nutritional value, because the minor millets have got a lot of medicinal properties. And those are grown in Andhra Pradesh, in Tamil Nadu, in Orissa, in fact, now UP, Jharkhand, even Kashmir, in the Sanwa, in fact, the barnyard millet and all are grown in the hilly regions, and Bihar, you name it. And many of the states are becoming leaders in one kinds of millets. Like you have Orissa doing the little millet. In Orissa, you find very good little millet being grown. Whereas if you go to Karnataka, a lot of ragi millet is grown. And in Maharashtra, you'll find a lot of, bajra and jawar being grown. So means there is there is an interest in millets in almost every state. Uttar Pradesh is coming up very well in growing different kinds of millets. So we have now, in fact, a good variety in almost every site. And depending on which state, which grain is grown more, you'll find the people in that particular state, have more food varieties of that particular grain.
That becomes the staple. That becomes the staple.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so as again, it's basically as we have, it's kind of there's nutrition in diversity. It's all over the country,
Yes.
different regions growing different millets, which is great.
Yeah.
Now, if we can talk about different millets a bit in detail, as you did mention, Shobha, jawar, bajra, nachni are kind of the bigger millets. They are grown in larger quantities. They are consumed in larger quantities, way larger quantities than other millets. Nutrition quotient, Nazneen, for each of them, would you like to highlight anything about jawar, bajra, nachni? Nachni, of course, you mentioned that extremely high, one of the richest sources of calcium. Anything else that you would like to highlight?
Regarding Nashni also that, today a lot of work, a lot of research also has been around Nashni and its prebiotic properties. And a lot of, interesting recipes like the Nashni buttermilk actually is very much in trend. In fact, even at Karnal, they do this as daily replacements. And I think it's a very, very interesting way. And Nashni by itself also is very versatile. So that's something, a lot of emerging work is there. Even around, sprouted Nashni also, the protein content as well as the millet content, the overall nutritional content is very high for the Nashni. As far as the Jawar is concerned, it is one of the most widely used, things, very, very versatile. I think it's one of the most easiest replacements to beat because other ones have a little bit of off flavor, but Jawar can be easily incorporated. And so it has a very high amount of niacin and also, which actually helps in transforming all the energy into usable body energy, so increasing your metabolic rate. Also, iron and copper are two very important essential minerals which are found in the Jawar, and they're known to improve the body circulation as well. Besides, the magnesium content is also very high. We know that even in Jawar, there are many trace elements like the zinc, copper, which and other 20 micronutrients which actually help in the immunity as well. So both as far as immunity and antioxidant, activity is concerned, Jawar is a great food there. As far as Bajra is concerned, I just like to actually draw a little anecdote because Bajra, as we know, is one of the highest sources, millet which has a very high iron content as well, and also that it has a very high zinc content. So in fact, I was watching one of these very beautiful serials called Raja Rasoi or Kahaniya, and there they had this anecdote that in Rajasthan, when they fought the war, it was completely drought and famine, and they were fighting the war against the Mughals, and all that the soldiers got to eat was one bajra ka laddu, which was not sweet, just bajra, just dry roasted and kept, and every soldier just got to eat that, and they actually won the war. And so when the Mughal emperor, and then they had to quit India and leave, and when he was asked that what is that one thing you would like to take from India if you ruled from there, so he said, I would like to take bajra, because if something can sustain the soldiers, their health and their iron levels were high, their zinc was high, their immunity never reduced, they never had any infections in spite of eating so little. So I think that itself speaks volumes. And also the green color has a lot of phenolic content, which again is very helpful. So all of the three are actually superheroes. And like both our speakers have spoken, they can be used regionally wherever, whichever fits into the, regional or the cultural diet plan.
Yeah, I'll just add one point regarding Nachmi, regarding ragi. I don't know how much it's used in the northern part, but in South India means in Karnataka, in Tamil Nadu, in Kerala, all these places, where, because we were talking about child mortality, all those places, the baby food is actually just the ragi, the malted ragi, and that is what children grow with, and that is the real healthy option for any child. All the cereals that we buy of wheat and rice for the child is actually most harmful, because many children get IBS when they grow up because of this wheat and the cereals that we are making for the children. But children who are growing up having the ragi malted, they are the ones who are actually healthy, and they have no issues at all in digestion later on in life. So that's a very good point.
That's true, Shobha. In fact, it's even in the West, even in Mumbai, in the western part of the country, also Nachni Sattva is what is called, and is in fact one of the most widely used baby foods. And it is now not only in the rural population, even in the big cities, in fact, that is what is preferred. So yes, it is very much used in infant foods as well, in that when the babies, in the infancy stage as well. I don't want to play a spoil sport, but here, because a lot of them are dietitians, I think one important point to make is that when we use bajri or jawar as chapati or bhakri, the grammage is very important. You know, when it comes to weight loss, when it comes to diabetes, just because it's jawar or bajri, it is not unlimited. The grammage, the quantity that is used is very important. So whether it's a roti or a bhakri or a chapati, we need to take into consideration and spend some time finding out the grammage or the size of the dough ball from our patients, because there very often it can go wrong and we may not get the weight loss or even get the sugars under control because they are considered healthy, which they are. But the grammage, the quantity does matter, the portion size does matter. Asha, any?
I'll just give one tip for that, because
Yes.
what I find is that any of these, because they are gluten free, they don't have gluten, so they cannot be, you know, spread out easily into thin big chapatis or things. So what is done is that very often, as you rightly said, people take a lot of dough, you know, to make a chapati of a certain size. They make it thick and it's a total glycemic overload. So another alternative to that would be to add some urud dal flour, you know, to add some urud dal flour to it. So that becomes healthier as well. And at the same time, the bhajra content is reduced. And then you will also, it will also become better in texture to be able to, you know, spread it out a little better. So that's one tip which you can probably keep in mind.
No, that's a great tip, Shobha. And you're in fact increasing the protein content of your chapati, and you are preventing the spike. Absolutely, you're blunting the glycemic
Yes.
response. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
and
great tip.
you also complementing both the proteins, so you are also improving the protein quality of the entire meal. So yeah, I think I agree. It's a beautiful tip.
Asha, any cooking tips for these three grains, three millets, jawar, bajra, najni? Any challenges that you kind of faced in using them?
There is not really any challenge. These are all ancient grains, and we have always been using these flours to make our chapatis, roti, etc. And as rightly all three of you said, that you know, you take a lot of flour to try and make like a decent shaped and decent size roti, because it's little difficult, it's very coarse and it's little difficult to bind. So I have tried one little trick. Of course, what Shobha said was the dal. To that, I would like to add maybe a tablespoon of flaxseed powder, which would also add to little more of the nutrition to the thing. And try and bind, if you're not necessarily vegan, you can try and bind the dough with little bit of yogurt, which would also add little bit more of the dairy calcium as such. And then the dough becomes very pliable and you're able to do it easily. I'm not like trying to show off, but in my house, when we make jawar, bajra, nachni, roti, we really manage to make them very thin. So the quantity that is given by my dietitian Niti, that you only have to take 4 tablespoons, and I will manage to make 2 rotis in that, just using these little additional tricks. So this is one thing about jawar. And we, besides the roti, we can use these grains. Each one, I'll just take a minute for each one. Like jawar, they come in whole seeds. And you know, the top layer is like a flaky thing, which is like a very difficult to digest, etc. So you take those grains, you soak them so that flaky part gets softened, and then you soak them for about 8 to 12 hours. Then maybe you want to sprout them and you make a fantastic pulao. You can do upma, you can do like a porridge in whichever form that you want. And as you say, you would say, let's say 2 tablespoons you take of jawar seeds for your this one quota for the breakfast, and it will become into a lot of thing by adding lots of vegetables and onions and tomato, and you have like a bowl full of this very nutrient breakfast. So, you know, adding a few other things as well in the similar quantity would really help a lot. And but if your rules in nutrition allow, what I would also like to do is soak, as Shobha said, the urad dal. There are other things also which you can soak along with that and make it into a nice batter. And why not have like a dosa, which is like totally, not, I can't say totally carb free. You all know how much of the carbs it has, but cut it down. So you add another ingredients which I found, if you all approve of it, of course, is the red rice. It has got low glycemic index, and you soak that in equal quantity and make it into some nice batter, and have like one dish meal kind of a thing. Whether you make it in a like a jawar bowl where you put lots of veggies and you put this cooked rice and the millet together, and I think you'll be very satisfied with that kind of lunch. So these are a few things that you could do with all these millets, jawar bajra and nachni. Of course, the sprouting is, I totally agree. I have seen and done that also for my grandson. He has only had all throughout from his birth till now, the sprouted nachni flour, which you get from specific shops. And more you go more towards the village side, they do it more because they know that it is very nutritious and they would give it to their children. So we procure very naturally done sprouted nachni malt or flour or whatever you call it, and the porridge made with some nice powdered nuts and all. It's the perfect thing for a child to have. So these are the few tips that you could do with all these three grains, and make it a little more interesting so people will be bent more towards eating healthier grains as compared to what they were used to earlier.
Right, thanks, Asha.
Yeah.
So if we move to the minor millets, we know that a lot of these millets are used actually in during fasting times, whether it's sava or it's kodri or it's kuttu. So we want to move to these. Shobha, as you did mention that different millets are being grown in different parts of the country now, it's not even localized to one region. When it comes to these little millets, are there any challenges for the farmers?
Challenges to the farmer basically is the problem is about 2 generations, like I said. The know-how, just as millets had gone off from the markets, and people were not eating it, even the millet farmers did not, the knowledge of millet farming did not actually, was not handed down. It was not handed down properly. So today you actually need people who can go to the farmers and teach them, because of the new generation they don't know how to grow the millets properly. So because they don't know how to grow it, they don't get the proper yield, and then because of that, they are further discouraged. So you need to have either people who have done agricultural as their who are graduates of agriculture, or you have got societies in all these states, farming societies, who will actually go into the farmlands and teach the people, because you don't need fertilizers, you don't need any chemicals. It is just a matter of teaching them how and when to soak, and when, first of all, providing them the right grains, because the right grains are not available. So that's why you have a lot of seed banks, in Karnataka, in Andhra Pradesh, which are providing the farmers with good quality seeds, good quality that they can actually sow and get a good crop. So that is one issue, because very often, if there's too much of poverty, the farmer who had kept aside, some grains for sowing the next year, they just consume it because they don't have food in the house, So there is an important need for seed banks to go and help these farmers at the time of sowing. So that is one thing. Because second thing is teaching the know-how, and most important is demand. When there is demand generated by all of us, then automatically what happens is that the farmer gets encouraged. He gets encouraged because his land is lying arid, it is lying there without any crop, and he would be happy to grow if he's getting money for it. So we need to, the cycle has to get completed. The more we encourage the cycle, the more, the challenges people will find a way to overcome the challenges.
Right,
So
sure.
that's-
Yeah. So as Nazneen also mentioned, I guess there is Millet Board nationally, which is also kind of trying to do some good work and helping farmers. So that is great. Nazneen, would you like to take up the nutrition quotient of these, some of these little millets, like, as I mentioned, the Sava, the Kang or Kangni, Kodri, Kutki, and maybe the English names for that, so that, our participants are kind of more familiar with
Yeah.
these.
Sure. So typically when we're looking at Kang or foxtail, it is very rich in vitamin B12, okay? And besides, it almost has around 38% of dietary fiber, which is huge actually, And also it is a slightly yellow color thing. So iron levels are slightly high, but the antioxidant content is extremely high because it has some amazing amounts of lysine, thiamine, iron, calcium, niacin. So all of these together work in synergy. In fact, there is an interesting study which showed like reduction of CRP levels even with the foxtail millet. And today a lot of people are also using it in biryanis, which I thought was a very clever combination. And if you combine it with pulses, because of its higher, it tastes very good. Then when we look at Sanwa, it is one of the richest sources of crude fiber. And again, because of its functional quality itself, the GABA, that is the gamma aminobutyric acid, and the beta glucan, both are very high. So both of these also help in reducing the the cholesterol level. So that's a striking feature even for the Sanwa. And when we look at Kodri, okay, or the Kodo millet, here again, a lot of micronutrients, proteins, dietary fiber like your niacin, riboflavin, also minerals like copper, especially when we're looking at diabetes. So we're talking about copper, manganese, and phosphorus. And yes, completely agree with the point of portion control, but these can be great fits even for the diabetic population. Also, these have some essential amino acids like the lysine, threonine, and the valine, which are considerably high in the kodri as compared to all the other millets. So that is a very important thing. One of the important millets which is high to the tune of almost 12.5% is the porso millet or the chena or the bari as it's called. And so even if you're eating like as compared to the 2.5 or 3 grams, which comes from the cereal, if you look at porso millet, it is one of the highest sources of protein also. And it's a much cheaper source of manganese as compared to the traditional, spices and nuts, etc. So it can be very unique in that sense. When you're looking at the little millet or the putti or the sawan, again, iron contents are very high. Dietary fibers almost to the tune of 38%, which is extremely valuable. So in all these smaller millets, great nutrient value, high calcium content, high iron content, and tremendous antioxidant activity.
Great. That was a very good overview, Nazneen. So if we put it in a nutshell, perhaps we can say that foxtail and kodo foxtail, in fact, is the lowest in carbs, followed by kodo and barnyard. The highest in protein is proso, as you mentioned, which is followed by foxtail. When it comes to calcium, it's nachni, of course, hands down. When it comes to iron, it's the little millet or the kutki. And if you're talking about low in calories, then barnyard tops the list, followed by kodo. So this would kind of, I think, help our fraternity. And coming to the next question, Asha, any cooking tips for these millets again, or any challenges that you faced when you tried using kodri or sava or kuttu? Not kuttu, kodri or sava.
Yes, I have used all different ones in all different manners. And when you tell, you must be experiencing when a patient comes to you and you suggest to them, have this millet, and I'm sure you will see the face that will say, oh, like, they don't want to have such boring food. So that's where I come in to tell you that all these millets, you can make it as interesting as you want. Today, people don't want to deprive themselves from pizza, burger, all these fast foods, even though they have been told and they are on diet and they have to follow certain regime. So what I have done over the time is using some millet or the other. Mainly, I have been using foxtail millet a lot. I would not lie that. And I really like that grain, and it gives a very good texture. In fact, you cook it like how you would cook any other millet. As I explained earlier, soak it, pressure cook it, whatever. And a portion of it is added to the vegetables required, and you can make a fantastic burger patty, which is fully vegan, vegetarian, and yet it will absolutely give the answer to all the things that are allowed for a particular patient. I'm just giving one example. So it's very possible, and I have tried and tested a lot of things, and found that I've been able to do, starting with the porridge, to the khichdi, to steamed dokla, to chila, to dosa, to idlis, to pulao, to anything you name it. And I just said about the burger, and even a pizza based, so to say. But I have to add like a little bit give and take certain ingredients, like, a chia seed soaked in water, and make like a little sticky mixture, and you add that to the flour, which is you roast the millet, you cool them and make a flour, and use that as a base, and along with all the other ingredients, and you have a fantastic pizza base. So these are all, many people do, okay, oh, I am making today bajri pizza. What they do is just will make plain and simple bajra roti, make it nice and crisp, and have pizza on that. That's also fine, but that's like a quick fix. But if you actually want to go through the traditional way and an alternative to your the authentic dishes, like how people would like, you can surely do that using any of these millets. And I have not found any problem with any of them. And as I said, just remind you once again, always soak them, preferably overnight, or if you want to do it into a flour, just roast them to get that nutty flavor out, and you can, I think, do wonders. And I would call this whole episode a millet magic. So it's really like magical what all you can do with it. And I was myself surprised that the dosa that I made out of the millet batter was crispier and tastier and more filling, and keeps you full for a longer time than the other one. I don't know if you have experienced this, but I felt that, and I think it is fantastic.
Yeah,
No,
the
you're-
satiety index of millets is very high. I mean, that's because
Yes.
of the increased fiber content. I don't know whether you all are aware, in millet grains, the fiber and the carbohydrates are in concentric circles,
Yes.
So that's
Yes,
one of the
yes.
reasons why the glycemic index is very, very low, because of that, you are able to take it. And another difference is that, like the minor millets, the tinier millets, all the kodo, the foxtail, the little millet, the barnyard millets, all of them, if they are able to retain, they come into the blood over a period of time. Normally ragi also, or bajra and jawar, they will come into your blood in about 2.5 hours. They will spike in your blood. But whereas these little millets, they take sometimes 5 hours to 6 hours to actually come into the blood. It comes in a very slow manner, which is very healthy for all diabetic patients. So that's why you feel the satiety for a good long period of time. If you don't feel hungry, unlike rice and wheat, which will give you a spike in about 45 minutes, and in 1 hour, 1.5 hours, you're in the kitchen looking for something to eat. So there's a big difference when you go on to a millet diet compared to, a rice or wheat diet. Yeah.
I'd just like to make a point here in addition to what Asha ji and Shobha has mentioned, that when you're looking at minor millets, the coating normally these need to be dehulled because it has a very strong flavor, and I think that is where we need the industry as well, because that little bit of dehulling helps to improve the palatability and also the better acceptance and include it in the diet. So I think that a lot of people think that okay, they'll just buy it and use it, but I think dehulling is an important process where we do require management at an industrial level. So that's an
No,
important.
I think all the grains that are available in the market are dehulled. Means I don't know what products you're talking about, but most products are dehulled already. And the case, what you need to do is that you have to only be careful to buy unpolished. You should not buy the polished, because when you buy the polished, you are losing a lot of the nutrients, and also you're losing a lot of the fiber.
Yeah.
So and then your glycemic index is again running into trouble. So if you must always insist on buying the brands which give you only unpolished, and unpolished, you can actually see the color difference between the grains. And another major issue is that when you buy polished, see, each of these grains have a different pricing, like foxtail millet and barnyard millet and photo millet, they're all priced differently. When they are polished, they all look very similar. So what happens, one expensive millet is sometimes adulterated with a weaker, less priced millet. So that's another issue when you buy, polished millet. So you should always go for the unpolished ones, and most of them are already dehulled in the market. Means probably they are selling the hulled one and the ones which are not dehulled as well. I'm not sure.
Right. Asha, which do you think is the most versatile of the millets when it comes to cooking? Any favorites?
As I just mentioned, it used to be jawar earlier, but since last couple of years, I have discovered, and as
Okay.
we all have rediscovered these ancient grains, I think foxtail millet has been our family's favorite. In fact, I'll just tell you one small thing. Once I had tried out this batter to make the South Indian meal, and we made some idlis, came out fantastic. Then we thought we'll do the dosa. So my children started saying, oh no, we want the normal dosa as well. We don't want to try this one. We are not sure what it will be like. So we said, fine. So we were making both side by side. And trust me, the moment the foxtail millet dosa comes on the table, it would be vanished. And children, after trying once, they said, oh, dusra wala lao. So it was, they're very slowly developing this palate, depending on what you mix with and how you make it and what you add and how interesting you do it. I think it is doing a lot of good to everyone. And even the youngsters have started loving it. My children just love, don't make plain one, just make the foxtail one. I think it was so good. So
Right.
I think that is become a hot favorite in our house and everywhere. So in fact, I took some time back, I took a special millet class where I taught all the things with millet, including a small dessert as well, like how you would make a custard and a porridge and, with fruits, etc. So it was like lovely.
Right. So that is, I think, a big shift that millets are, it's not only if you have to eat healthy or if you are unwell or if you are kind of battling some comorbidity that you have to have millets, you can be absolutely healthy, but be able to include millets in many different interesting ways. So yeah, that's great, Asha. Something as simple a tip as, using flax seeds, which will in fact only increase the nutrition content, besides of course improving the consistency of the dish. I think it's a great hack that you shared. Nazneen?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just lost my network for a minute.
Yeah.
Any favorite millet from your side?
I would say barnyard, ragi, and bajra. These
All
are
right.
my 3 favorite ones.
Okay. you're not being kind of partial to only one. That's great. And Shobha, any favorite from your side?
Yeah, foxtail I think is one of my favorites for sure. But along with that, I also like kodo. Kodo, it gives a good variety. I mean, even in texture and even in the taste is a little different. But I find that like Asha was telling, you can cook anything. You can make so many varieties. And even for people who are getting introduced into millets, I always tell them, they say, oh, I can't, because they are the palate is ruined with rice and wheat, and they don't like to try millets. What I normally tell them is that, okay, first you start by mixing the two. Okay, you cook rice and cook some millet and mix. Instead of taking 2 spoons of rice, you take 1 spoon of rice and mix 1 spoon of millet and mix it together and have it. So slowly reduce the quantity of rice and then build the quantity of millets, and then slowly you'll find the palate changes. And even that's the same as with wheat as well, even with chapati, slowly you got to encourage them. If you tell them to change directly, many people are hesitant to make that change. But slowly and steadily, yeah.
Yeah, I have a suggestion to your point at this one is that when you think that you like only wheat or rice and it's not there in front of you, so for like 4 to 5 times that the rice comes in front of you, you just keep telling yourself, no, I don't like rice, I prefer that, I don't like rice. You just psych yourself, and trust me, you will actually start liking the millet when it
Yeah.
comes in front of you. You will ask for it. That's also
Yeah.
another way of looking at
Yeah.
it. It's like
Yes.
psyching yourself. I've done it many times.
Yeah,
And I just
absolutely.
tell myself, I don't like this, I don't like this. So actually, when it comes in front of you, you don't get tempted.
Yeah.
And
No,
you
and
want-
not only that, when you reduce rice and wheat, the hunger pangs reduce.
Yes.
When the hunger
Yes.
pangs reduce, you start
Yes.
appreciating other foods.
Yes.
Because that is required. And another thing you can tell your people to do is to have 1 day a week as a millet day. Have a
Yeah,
millet day.
wow.
Yeah, you have a millet day once a week, twice a week, thrice a week. And do that. Another one very healthy thing to do is to make what you call in South India, it's called ambali. Ambali means a fermented porridge. It gives you all the probiotics that you need. You soak the millets overnight. You soak it overnight, and next day morning you cook it. You cook it with about maybe 1 cup of grain. You cook it with about 10 cups of water, and after you boil it, you close it with a cloth or something, and you ferment it for about, depending on the temperature outside, you ferment it about 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours. Then you have a good fermented porridge, and you can have it. You can have it one day as one of your meals with some pickle, or with some anything that you like, with some maybe bhindi bhaji, or anything that you like. You have what you call gruel or porridge, and that gives you all the probiotics that you need, which will give you a healthy tummy and a healthy mind. So all these different things that will actually help to bring back the balance. And you can make one day with one particular grain, another day with another grain. So you will be able to have one grain every couple of days, instead of sticking only to jawar or only to bajra, not getting the benefits of the other smaller grains. Use it in different ways like this. So that is
Yeah,
another
I-
idea you
I
can
think
have.
that's a great point Shobha mentioned, because again, when we're looking also at a lot of food sensitivity tests, when one goes off from wheat and rice and then you suddenly get dependent on one millet, that again starts creating a problem. So like she mentioned, that if you're introducing smaller portions of millet, but a lot of them, you're not only increasing the dietary diversity, but also the acceptance of it in different formats is far more higher. So I think that's I completely agree with that point as well.
Yeah,
And
the food habits are difficult to change. We have all seen that all the time in a practice. So bringing in smaller portions, trying it out once a day, once a week, I think these are some great hacks, great tips, which we can suggest to our patients and for ourselves also, if we are already not into millets.
Neeti, one very especially for women and a lot of men with abdominal fat, I just tell them that, okay, you do a 1 day millet day completely, and next day you try and buckle your jeans or your belt and you will see it is far more easier rather than, pushing it, because the bloating is definitely lesser.
Yes.
Okay, and the moment they try it and they know that is true, their compliance towards the diet has tremendously increased. So that's a tip for all the students and my dietitian friends. They definitely see a lot of difference.
No,
Just one day is enough to prove your point.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point, because one day when you do a millet day, the next day you'll actually feel the difference that you had having a millet day, and then you'll be encouraged. And even young girls who want to remain slim and nice, in their lives, they say they want to, everybody now the craze is to remain, within a good BMI. So then that is a good reason. Okay, you introduce a couple of millet days in the week, and there you have it. You'll feel the difference, and then you will want to do it more.
No, and again, I think, as you mentioned, for women and for young girls, we are seeing increasing PCOS in the population also. So because these millets blunt the glycemic response, and PCOS is characterized by insulin resistance, I think millets can be a very, very welcome addition in somebody who's battling PCOS, is trying to lose weight, is trying to reduce fasting insulin levels. Yes.
Yeah, there's another one interesting fact I would like to tell you, because it'll be very useful to you as well. Is that one of our nutritionists who's known to us, she has been treating patients who have got ADHD and autism children, and she is put them into the millet diet, and she's finding amazing results. Amazing results means that she's finding such good response that she says that all ADHD and autism children should be moved to a millet diet, So that's another area where you are probably working, and then, you can recommend that to parents who are having children with these situations, because that's another major problem today. I find even over here, the number of children who are autistic and who have the ADHD are increasing. And this kind of a millet diet is very important. Gluten-free diet, which is also a millet diet, is very important for them.
Right. I think we could perhaps go on and on with this very, very interesting discussion, but we have limitations of time. Thank you, Shobha, Ashaji, and Nazneen, for this very, very enlightening discussion. I think we're going to take some questions because there are quite loads of them. So this one is for you, Nazneen. Millets and hypothyroidism.
So ideally, there is a lot of there is some amount of controversial work. However, as of now, we do not allow millets for hypothyroidism, because even the gluten-free, when one goes on a gluten-free diet, it actually there is some amount of interference with the absorption of the medicine, and that is why it is restricted. However, there are some new emerging studies which are showing that that may not be true. But we'll wait for more evidence to come in to kind of be clear on that point.
Yeah,
but as of now, we just restrict it.
Yeah, I'll just tell you something about that. First of all, this thyroid issue means the problem that they see the millets is actually on bajra and jawar. These are the ones which actually interfere, whereas the little millets do not have that problem with thyroid. So the little millets can be had, and soaking them, then there is no thyroid issue with that. So bajra and jawar is what is to be avoided if you have a thyroid issue. So the little millets are known to be fine.
So the bajra and jawar also, that is exactly, I think, what Nazneen was saying, that it is kind of the jury is not
obstructing.
Out. Yeah, it is kind of controversial. But the little millets are definitely not, the minor millets are not in the picture.
Yeah.
Since you're from the industry, Shobha, question, is there a difference between whole millets and millet flour nutritionally? Do they have the same value?
No, the nutritional value is the same. Means basically it will, of course, the fiber to a slight extent will be reduced because there is a processing involved. Anything that is processed, the fiber is lost. Of course, in our products, we try to ensure maximum, the fiber is retained. And we do it in a very specialized manner by which we do not, process too much. We use other methods like heating and all that to maintain the nutritional content of the product. So processing slightly would make a difference for sure, but still it is far better than using other grains, So instead of using a wheat rava or a wheat semolina, you use a millet semolina. There is a huge difference. So you have to take that into consideration. So when you use, instead of using whole grains, if you want to use semolina one day for variety in your diet, you can use it, but you make sure that you add vegetables to it and you cook it in such a manner that it takes care of that little difference in the content.
Right. Asha, somebody is asking, how do you make a pulao out of millets?
Yeah, I will say it in a very short form. You have to soak the millet, whichever millet you choose, overnight. Then rinse that millet once again, drain out that water, and in fresh water, pressure cook it to 3 to 4 whistles. And when you remove it, just separate the grains out with the fork. And whatever you do to a normal pulao, the tempering, is that the cinnamon and cloves and little elaichi and the bay leaf, etc. And put that, if you want to flavor it with biryani masala, then maybe a little bit of that. Otherwise, normal dry masalas from the masala box, what we would use, and cook it in the same way, and add like about half the quantity of vegetables, or whatever you like, either vegetables or paneer or tofu or whatever you would prefer. So that
Great.
was simplest way of explaining.
Yes. Foxtail dosa, is similar to make as regular dosa?
It is very similar. Only thing is the content in the batter are different. The proportion of what we put in the batter are different. So other than that, the procedure of making dosa is absolutely the same.
Right. Somebody is asking, which is the best millet for diabetics? I think that has been kind of answered. Can we mix all millets? From the cooking point of view, Asha?
No. I think it will be very confusing, because the texture and the consistency and the flavors, and it will become into a big jhamela. Can we ever mix the brown rice and the red rice and the white rice and the sticky rice and make into one khichdi? No, it would not. It will be similarly, it will be the same confusion created here. So if at all you want to do is, you can do one with some other grain, as I explained, red rice or the whole urad dal, and make it into a batter, or even the same way into the flour. But if you want to do the mixed millet flour as flour, you can do it. If you're doing anything else, then I would advise that you do one single one.
Any inputs from Shobha on this?
Yeah, we have one product, which is multi-millet khichdi. Multi-millet khichdi we have, which is one of our very well-selling products, and that is because we have a certain combination of which millets will go in together.
Yeah. So
which will cook better, which will.
Yeah.
So
that's
you
very
have
important.
worked
You cannot. Yeah. So which millet mix with which you wouldn't know. So we have made that proper combination where the moong dal, and along with that, the different millets that can be cooked together along with some mild spices are given together. And that is so tasty, I cannot tell you. You should try it yourself, because you can add vegetables. It already has all the millets, and it requires you can make it with a little bit of, you add a little tomato and some bay leaves and some vegetables into it. And, children love it. And it's one of our hits. Like, they'll come and ask me, when are you making khichdi? Khichdi means only millet khichdi. There is no other khichdi that they know.
Right. So I think in a amateur kitchen where we are still struggling with different millets, it might not be a great idea.
That's what I said.
Yeah. So, but yes, theoretically, it's not possible. It is possible. Somebody is again asking, is kodo and foxtail millet the same? I think hopefully we have answered those questions in the discussion. Now is the time to basically announce the winners for the millet recipe competition. So we have 3 winners. The first one is Sneha Ratnani. And may I ask Pinali to kind of post the video where we are sharing the recipe, the video recipe with you. It was done very well. Of course, because it's in the virtual mode, we could not taste it, but every other component of the recipe looks very good. So Pinali, can you share the video, please?
Ratnani here.
Yes. Congratulations, Neha. If you're there,
I just
yes.
wanted to add a little bit that I had not added protein, but you can definitely go ahead and add paneer or tofu in the recipes
Sure.
or sprouts. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, thanks. But you've done a good job. Congratulations once again.
Thank you,
And
ma'am.
you will be receiving a millet hamper, which thanks to Shobha, who has promised 2 millet hampers for the 2 winners.
That
So
would be great. Thank you so
congratulations
much,
once
ma'am.
again.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
I think perhaps we are unable to upload the recipe. Pinali is trying. In the meantime, these will be.
1 second. Just give me
Sure,
1 second.
sure. The second, let us wait. Also, in the meantime, I would like to share that Asha Khatau has been very kind to share one of her very good recipes with her, and the recipe has been posted in the chat. It will, so you can kind of go through it, and of course, these are recipes which really work. So thank you, Asha, for that gesture. Thank you
My
very
pleasure.
much.
My pleasure.
Right. As this video shows, millets are so amenable to different cuisines. You can use it for Indian, Asian cuisines cuisine as well. So yes, go ahead and try it. The next winner is Saliha Chaudhary, who's also done a great job. Congratulations, Saliha, if you're there. And Pinali, if we can share the video of Saliha Chaudhary. Wow, an Indo-Mexican fusion with millets, why not? Last but not the least, our very own Dr. Niranjana Shah, the ever so dynamic, she's 85 years old and she has actually submitted the recipes and they have been judged as very, very good. So it is our absolute pleasure and privilege to give this another prize to Dr. Niranjana ma'am. Pinali, if you can share the video, please. Yes, she practices what she preaches. So right on this note, I would like to thank Shobha Menon, Asha Khatau, and Nazneen Hussain once again for their excellent participation and their inputs in this discussion. May I request Jayashree Paranswe, co-convener of IDA Mumbai chapter, to give the vote of thanks, please.
Neeti, before we log off, just one thing, because we have a lot of interested audience watching. So there is the Indian Institute of Millet Research, which is based in Hyderabad. So next time all of y'all are going to NIN or you're going for a conference, please do stop by there. I think it's a fabulous place. They also have something called an innovation hub, and they have a lot of grants for young startups as well, who are innovators and who want to do a lot of stuff. So if any of the dietitians want to go the entrepreneurial way and start an entire line of millets, ping me, or I can put you in touch with IIMR, and it's a great place. The government itself is giving so much of funds because they want to kind of grow, and 2023 is declared by the United Nations as the year of millets. So in fact, India is now getting geared towards it. In the next 2 years, we are going to be like the nation who's going to be providing millets to across the world. So any entrepreneurial mind who wants to do some work or get incubated or get some funding, definitely let me know. Yeah. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Nazneen. Pinali, if you don't mind, yes, thank you so much. For our audience, I would like to introduce the convener of the program, Neeti Desai. She is a consultant nutritionist. She practices in South Mumbai and she is attached to Kambala Hill Hospital for last 17 years. She is secretary and master trainer, Association of Diabetes Educator, and she is the best diabetes educator trainer, I would say, because she has been my teacher, co-editor of IDA's Clinical Dietetic Manual 2018, and she has authored chapters for various textbooks. She joined treasurer of IDA Mumbai chapter, a regular columnist in health and nutrition for 18 years, and also Femina Miss India. She's a nutritionist for that. Having said that, Neeti, what a wonderful program you have conceptualized today. Today we learned so much about millets, our forgotten ancestral food, I would say. Now it's time to go back to villages and to travel backward, I suppose, because India was always, I mean, millets were the choice of cereals for so many years. But in between somehow we lost the touch, and we, as Shobha said rightly, it was rice and wheat all the way. So thank you for introducing us all again to the millets. Shobha Menon madam, thank you so much for connecting with us from London in spite of this time, time gap. Thank you so much. And you took millet in a very serious way, and you are, I would say you are on a mission to introduce millets to Indian population. Thank you so much for agreeing to be part of this program. Asha Katao madam, to popularize any food, it is the chefs who are so very important, because our generation, especially the younger generation, needs these foods redesigned, I would say. The normal ways are there, what we eat, but we also need, to relook at it and present it to them in a modern way. And your role in that is very crucial. And today you have given us some wonderful recipes and some wonderful tips how we can incorporate all these recipes. Thank you so much for being with us and sharing your recipes with our audience. Once again, from IDA Mumbai chapter, thanks for participating. Nazneen Hussain, what can I say? You are our very own, and you have given the right nutrition inputs as far as using these millets are concerned. And as you have shown us, it is powerhouse of nutrition, and we need to use it. I would just like to add one more point here, that especially now gluten-free is one of the most popular kind of diets, and all those or patients who are on gluten-free. Fortunately, in India, we have all these millets which are available, which are popular and routinely used, so which provide an alternative source of cereal for all those patients who require gluten-free. So there again, millets play a role. Nazneen, thank you so much for letting the audience know about all these smaller and bigger millets and their nutrition properties. I'm sure the dietitians are aware, but all the audiences which are there with us today are going back with more knowledge, more nutrition knowledge about these millets. Thank you so much. Coming to Dr. Niranjana and Binashani ma'am, they are our seniors, mentors, and we have learned nutrition from them. Ma'am, thank you so much, because you have taken these recipes to your groups, and you have so many people have joined us today because of your encouragement. So thank you so much for taking active interest in this program. All the audience who participated, this program would not have been a hit. There was almost 100 people who joined live today. So thank you so much. You made this program a really interesting one by your attendance. Oh, congratulations to all the winners, and Dr. Niranjana ma'am, your age defeats everything. I mean, you make us believe that age is just a number. Your enthusiasm is hats off to you, maybe because you are eating all these healthy foods, and that makes you so, you are the way you are. All the IDA members who have been there with us for planning this program, thank you very much. Our convener, Zamrud Patel, for giving us encouragement to conduct all such wonderful programs. Pinali, for your background support, thank you so much. And Niti, thank you for making such a wonderful program, and at such a short notice, I would say. So everyone, thank you so much. And from IDA Mumbai chapter, I wish you all a happy Dasara and happy Diwali. And I'm sure this Diwali we will be using more millet flour in our chaklis and whatnot.
I would like to thank Rita Patil and Safal Mahadik from our team who have judged the recipes for the contest, along with, of course, Anjali Nair ma'am and Veena Shani ma'am. Also Jayashree Paranspe and Zamrud Patel, they've all been judges for these recipes. So thank you so much. And Pinali, this wouldn't have been possible without your background support. So thank you ever so much. On this note, we are signing off. Have a good evening and greetings for the festive season. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Niti. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.